Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of the Road to FIDE Master series. This is the episode number 72, in which I will cover the analysis of the round number 8 from the Polish First League. Let's go into it. In the 8th round, as you can tell, I got paired against the International Master yet again, with black pieces yet again, so another tough challenge. On top of that, against this actual player, I've lost a game. I believe it was 15 years back, but it was... oh wait, I actually lost 2 games to the guy, like 15 years ago and like 5 years ago. So yeah, the past of playing him was not that pleasant. To add on top of this, I believe on both those occasions he was already an international master, probably. So yeah, tough opponent with tough past between each other, and the all or nothing match when you consider the team situation, because it was round number 8. We were playing against the very other contender to the promotion to the extra league. So even though I was having black pieces and playing international master, once more there was this, silent and maybe not even that silent expectation of me to not lose a game, because if you remember my 7 analysis from this tournament, I have not yet lost, right? So I was hoping, and my team was hoping, that I can continue that streak and not lose this game either. On top of that, my opponent was a very solid player, the Catalan player, and I had some secret, let's say, weapon against it to try to draw at the game and make it quite tough for white to break through, which is to go into the kind of the end game situation. Let's just play out the moves. I chose knight f6, c5, knight c6 with the idea of pushing e5, therefore white is more or less forced to choose d4 move. I chose e6, and now after c4 we are getting the transposition to the position I wanted to get with several, let's say, move orders. And now I took, he took, I took, he took, I took, he played knight b to d2 with the hopes of taking the pawn. I pushed, he took, so that at least he has a worse pawn structure. I castled, and this is, let's say, the starting point of this endgame. I've worked on this for not a lot of time, but quite some time. Therefore, I was kind of confident that I am well prepared for it, and I should be really close as you can get to the draw against the international master with black pieces. So yeah, let's see how it went, right? My opponent chose an unorthodox line, mostly because the main line would be to play knight b3, logically, developing the knight onto the more active square, kicking away my bishop, opening up this bishop, and so on. Knight e1, though, was the choice of my opponent, trying to open this bishop on the other hand and maneuver the knight into the more active, perhaps, square. Still, I was in my preparation, thankfully, so I chose rook d8, developing move, knight d3 hitting the bishop, going back with the bishop, and I believe this was the point in which I got surprised, because knight e1 itself is not that often played. Still, I had some, notes, but in here rook b1 was the move, crucial one for me, that I've covered in my notes quite deeply. But my opponent chose knight b3. He didn't play it straight away, right, to kick away my bishop, but he firstly played those 2 moves to kick it out, and only then played knight b3. So it seemed to me that, if I believe my notes are correct, and they should be, hopefully, this is not the most precise way of putting pressure from white. Therefore, I should be okay, and I just need to find the idea, right? And I mean, practically speaking, this might be sometimes a problem, because one thing is to know that the positions should be alright, maybe even equal already. The other thing is to actually find the line and the idea, why is it that? The first move of mine was okay, but it was the beginning of a kind of strategical downfall, because I was relying on the notes that I had after rook b1. And usually, when rook b1 and knight b3 are so different moves, it's not that good of an idea to try to play the very same ideas with the hopes that they will work as well as in the other line, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my take. And knight d5 anyway would be a desired move. I am kind of closing out the bishop and I would be obviously in love with this exchange. I'm hitting the pawn with some ideas of hitting it even more in the future. So opponent has to protect it. He did that by playing bishop d2. And in here, this is the first moment in which I've made first inaccuracy in the game. Not the first of many, but against International Master, you don't need that many of them, unfortunately. In here, the idea would be that if you, let's say, compare the position after rook b1, knight d5, bishop b2, which would be the main line, and you have this one and that one to compare, you can tell that in here I could have rather easily, thanks to the fact that the bishop has just covered the b file, play the bishop d7 developing move, trying to solve my issues on the queen side, and I didn't have that great alternative because basically all of the squares around the, let's say, center of the board are mostly covered from my opponent. I don't have any good entry points and outposts for my pieces. In this position, however, it's not the same because those two knights make bishop d7 option somewhat dubious at most. Maybe not that bad either, but the point is that I really need to be careful because knight c5 is incoming and I need to evaluate precisely what happens afterwards. The other thing is the bad one, let's say, about white's positioning, that in here he does not cover all the squares in the center all around it. So he covers that one and that one with the knights and pawns and whatever, but this one is missing. And it's missing because this knight has moved there. And this is the very big difference between this variation and the other one that I had prepped, that I had in mind, and that's something I should have went for. Meaning, instead of making tremendous efforts to make bishop d7 work, I should have just gone knight b6, going to c4, making this knight an amazing one, and only then afterwards think about either finishing the development, or maybe I would have some other possibilities too. I played bishop d7, unfortunately. Why am I saying that it's unfortunate? Because as I've said, it's beginning of a downfall, because I was trying to, as usual, unfortunately, make reasoning for a bad strategical choices with the hopes of good calculation skills, let's say. So, in general, in this position, the last thing you would like to do is give up the bishop pair for nothing. I, with bishop d7, invite opponent to play knight c5, after which I am kind of forced to give the bishop pair away. I just wanted it to work tactically. So I took the knight, knight was took, bishop was took, I even played b6, inviting my opponent to take here and there, because I thought, okay, this bishop pair is very good, but still in exchange for it I have those two weaknesses, and even though this is the problem and this is the problem, I can deal with that. I've calculated everything, you know, if he plays like this, I go there, so my rook is no longer that big of a problem, the knights are protecting each other. If he continues like this, trying to hit me there, there, and there, and then with the pin, whatever, I can play there. If he takes, I take. If he takes, I take. If he takes, I take. Like everything is well connected, well protected, well placed, whatever, you name it. Everything was well, good. But, you know, maybe there is some room for miscalculation at any point, right? Maybe I am missing some ideas, I am misevaluating something, so it's not that good of a choice to make a strategically dubious move and try to make an argument for it tactically. And this is something I need to work on for sure for the future. Let's see how the game went, because indeed I've missed one very powerful move. Because after knight c5 takes b6, my opponent said, you can take the knight, because I, in exchange, will take yours. He played c4. Amazing move. Making the whites attack and initiative along the lines and diagonals and all those pressures simply more dynamic, faster, effective, and so on, so on. I am in big trouble, because if you think about it, if I accept the knight and then my knight is taken, I wanted to play against the bishop pair only if my opponent had weaknesses. And now I have those. So it's not a bad combo to allow the opponent to create the problems and keep the bishop pair, right? So I cannot really allow that. If I cannot allow that, what can I do else? I have to go away with my knight, right? So I did just that. I played knight d2 e7, but once more, for the another move running, my opponent does not back up with the knight. He plays bishop g5, opening up the pin, one, other, here, pressure. I mean, wow, amazing, flawless stuff from my opponent. If I now take the knight, my knight is taken, and the problem was always the spin and this overloaded rook. So I am taken, I takes, I am taken, I can resign. If, well, I don't have many other choices, right, to be honest. So yeah, the only other choice is the one that I've made in the game, so it's f6, trying to close the diagonal, but my opponent is just, let's say, laughing at me for this attempt, because he can take on f6, simply maintain all those pressure spins and so on, and after I take the bishop, he's taking mine. And yeah, this was the lesser evil, I guess, than the other variation I just showed you without the exchange, because in here I'm only a pawn down, and this knight I felt like might have some difficulties with jumping away, because those pawns are limiting it somewhat, and you know, maybe I will catch this knight, whatever. My opponent simply and precisely though played rook d6, putting some pressure for the future, and also on top of that willing to double stack the rooks on the d file so that the knight is well protected. And now in here I chose knight a5 move, which I was kind of proud of. But it's losing on the spot due to amazing move. Not here yet, you have to prepare it, let's say, first. And it's so amazing and so tough, so hard to spot, that my opponent didn't do it either, even though he's an international master. So I will just spoil it to you in here. If you want to see it yourself, please pause this video and look for the 2-move sequence for white, basically finishing the game in the most beautiful way ever. Alright, I hope you did that, and I can show you. 95 is the move, because with my jump away I have weakened the rook, therefore some check with the discovery attack to the rook is on point, right? Logical stuff. Now I don't take the knight, obviously, because I would be losing the exchange, so I go back to king e8, and this is something I saw. I was even kind of inviting my opponent to do that. I didn't see the follow-up. Guys, the move is knight f7. Amazing stuff. You just jump straight into the cave, let's say, of the lion, of the bear, wherever, with knight to f7, because my king is now overloaded. I cannot at the same time accept the knight and protect the rook, so if I do that, I just lose it, right? And if I don't do it, look at this rook. It has nowhere to go, really. The only move I can make, because obviously the rook is attacked, I can take the rook on d6, and then the knight takes, forking my other rook with the king. Amazing, beautiful stuff, but I hope that you will also admit that it was kind of hard, because both myself and my opponent have missed that. So going back to this point, this was the simplest and the most beautiful way to win the game fast. However, my opponent did not find that, and if we would go into the knight e5 variation, other than that, it's not that clear if white is winning, because, for example, if you would like to exchange once and twice, I am hitting you there, I am hitting you there, maybe I will be getting the pawn back. The only way for you to not allow that, I mean you as white, is to play knight g4, so that if I take you there, you take me here, but I push f5. If you go back, I can try to make use of the dark squares, and even though you should be okay, I mean black has some counterplay at least, and if you go there to attack the pawn, I can play h6, and there is no other way, further way for the knight to attack any of my pawns. I am fine here, here, there, wherever, and this pawn is kind of lost. So in here I would be actually having pretty good practical chances to save the game. For those reasons, knight e5 was somewhat risky because it was inviting the exchanges along the d file overall. Only later on I spotted that maybe opponent can just simply play knight g4 now without exchanging the rook, so that if I take and he takes, he maintains the attack here but also have the one at this square, and the rook is active, so if I go there, maybe some rook d7 might be on the menu, and losing the pawn is not that big of a deal for the opponent. So all in all, yes, I'm still losing perhaps sooner or later, and obviously in this beautiful variation sooner than later, but the point is that my opponent did not go for it at all. He chose bishop e4 move. At first I did not understand at all what he's trying to achieve, because I would be over the moon to take this pawn and give him this one, right? Amazing exchange. So yeah, I took the pawn. I didn't do it with the knight, even though it seemed like an intuitive way of doing things, because now knight e5 is much better than in the previous sequence, because after king e8 takes, the knight that was protected by the rook is no longer protected, so it can be taken and I'm losing. So I had to do rook c4, because now knight e5, thanks to the fact that I am hitting the bishop, I can simply take the knight, leave the rook, because the bishop on the end is mine, and I might actually be a little bit better in here with the two knights for a rook. So after rook c4, he just played bishop d3. Once more, kind of a mystery to me at first what he's trying to achieve, but only later on it struck me that, for example, if I would like to go back with the rook and have the very same position as previously, just with one more pawn, bishop a6 was on his mind. I cannot do that move because of knight b8, and if I go rook to e8 now, once more knight e5, king e8, and now bishop b5, the whole point, giving me a check, making my king go away from the rook. I'm losing. So funnily enough, at this very point, even though knight e5 was obviously the most direct way to win, bishop e4 is considered by the computer as a blunder, but for me it was brilliancy. I couldn't spot the idea now. I couldn't spot the idea after this. Only, you know, when this happened on the board, I kind of got what my opponent wanted to do. And like this just showed you how deep the international master can think. I was not so deep in my thoughts in this game at any point, I guess. So yeah, in here already it's quite tough for me to make any good practical decision. In the end, I have decided that I want to finish those problems along the d file with the rook and so on, and I just gave up the exchange. So I played rook d to c8, allowing bishop c4, knight c4, rook d4, with the hopes that, well, you know, I was lost anyway in a sense, so maybe at least I will have some counterplay thanks to the fact that this knight has yet to go out. But at the same time, only after I gave up this exchange, I realized that my knight is also not too well placed, and rook f4 is also incoming with the very obvious attack to the pawn, and f5 would be perhaps one of the choices to defend it, but then the knight would escape, assuming that this knight also has gone away from the c4 guarding e5, and so on, so on. So in the end, even though I wanted to play against this very knight on d7 being stuck, I played b5, solidifying the knight on c4 that way, but for the, let's say, future, but still opening up the possibilities for the knight to jump away. And yeah, the rest of the game is not that interesting because I'm simply lost, and I tried kind of my best, but there was not that much to be tried, to be honest. My opponent attacked my f6 pawn, I protected it with knight to g8. He then tried to undermine my knight, which I didn't allow by playing a6, but after takes, yet another file has opened, therefore he takes over it. And I played rook c7, trying to protect my 7th rank, but this allowed the knight to jump away with knight b8. So yeah, you know, I'm not sure how much of the analysis is required there, because calculating the amount of moves, we are actually only halfway through the game, because we are on the move number 31 and the game lasted over 60 moves, but it's lost already. So I will just play out the moves maybe with some little explanation. So like attacking the pawn, protecting the pawn, attacking the pawn, hitting the rook in between. The rook goes away. I protected the previously attacked b5 pawn. The knight escapes. I need to keep in touch with the b5 pawn, so I kept my rook on the 5th rank, even though it seems somewhat limited and unusual here. E4 happened, limiting my rook even further. I played f5, trying to make anything, open and whatever. My pawn was attacked. I took there, he took there. Very good approach, trying to exchange the rooks. And I pushed e3 in between move, let's say. And after, because the point is that also after rook b5, obviously my knight got undermined. So I played e3 desperately with the hopes that, this move may happen. And after this and that, there is actually not that easy of a way to catch the pawn, because after rook e3, I can check, he goes away, check, here, here. Maybe I can fight, but obviously not only is it losing, but on top of that, my opponent was having none of that. He did not want to calculate, check this, verify. He just took the pawn on e3 first, knowing that with this exchange coming on and the knight being attacked, there is not that much that I can do in here. So I chose just simply knight e3, takes, rook e4, basically triple attacking my pieces in a way. Knight c4, takes, knight d4. We are after the control. I would have more hopes if I had at least one more pawn, but I have just lost it. So if it was 1 versus 1 or 2v2, maybe I can try to create some kind of a fortress, but I highly doubt it. And especially with the player of that caliber, my hopes were rather low. But just, to be a little bit more present during the round with the team, I just tried to play out still some few more moves. Without explanation, I will just tell you that obviously I have lost. And as a team, we drew that match, surprisingly. I mean, surprisingly, because it was still good result overall, because on basically every board we were lower rated. Surprisingly too, because even though we were lower rated, we were kind of better throughout the whole match. And unfortunately, this was the only time during the tournament when I've lost and I couldn't help the team, and this at least half a point that I usually gave would be amazing. So yeah, kind of a bad feeling, but it is what it is. This was the point when I resigned, when my knight got trapped, and yeah, what can I tell you guys? Tough fight. I couldn't find the best continuation after being, let's say, surprised in the opening. I didn't choose the right plan, and from that moment onwards, my opponent took over, played amazing game. Accuracy was, like top notch. I will even perhaps check the review. Let's see. I have the scene for it. Yeah, as you can tell, 94.5 chess.com says that the only miss of my opponent that you can see is the one that we discussed with this brilliancy knight f7. Other than that, I mean, his only moves were good, excellent, or brilliant, or even better, right? So yeah, and this is it. Unfortunate end to a good game, I guess, maybe, or at least not that bad. And yeah, in the last round, which will come up on the YouTube tomorrow, we as a team did not have everything in our hands. Not only did we have to win, but also hope for our direct opponents to not win their respective matches, but we wanted to give our best. And yeah, we'll see each other tomorrow for the analysis of the last round. Still, individually, this was an amazing tournament for me, so I had my hopes and mood high anyway. I hope you have that too after watching this game, because it was, even though lost, an interesting one, at least in my eyes. And if you think the same, please leave a like, please come back tomorrow for the summary of the tournament. And for this one, that's that. Thank you all for watching. Bye bye.